Hey y'all, how's it going? Let's see if I can adjust a little bit. I'm gonna have to hold Tiny Mike because it doesn't have the little thing on the back. I don't remember if I wrote a description for this live. Um, but just in case I didn't write a description for this live, hi, hello. I am Scotty Oakenlake, and I am the owner and creator behind Oaken Lake Creations. And first of all, I wanted to wish everyone a happy 4th of July weekend. It is the 250th anniversary of America, I guess. I wouldn't know. I guess it was 1776. So that makes sense. Um, and I figured, as an author of a new series, The Resurrection Curse, I thought it would be fun to not unleash. Yeah, I guess kind of unleash, actually. Unleash would be a good word because the Resurrection Curse series is kind of like a horror urban fantasy kind of thing. Um and in this case, it's kind of a jab at the current situation of things. Um, because the concept of the resurrection curse is that it's a blood curse that was enacted thousands of years ago, and all throughout the world, ancient factions would have become possessed um, in the future by these participants. Hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, for example, here's a great example: the ancient Romans. Uh, the Roman Empire was arguably one of the more successful empires. I mean, it's the one that's the most talked about. I mean, there were several others, but I picked the Roman Empire because um, actually, I just really love Roman history. I Fun fact: I studied classical civilization when I was studying at college, and in another life, I might have gone on to pursue like ancient archaeology, which probably would have been pretty cool. Um, what's up, Archaea Wolf? By the way. Um, so anyway, um, so for example, if in the Roman Empire a group of Roman soldiers would have partaken in this resurrection curse, then they would be promised the greatest gift, which in the resurrection curse, resurrection is the greatest gift, the ability to come back to life. Um, and so, if you can kind of imagine where my story was coming from, was the idea that I had of a group of Roman soldiers on a Chinook helicopter and basically trying to overtake a town. Um, so that's honestly kind of how the resurrection curse started. It started with the idea of these ancient factions coming back in the modern day, and what they would do. Because I mean, if you think about the Roman Empire, what they wanted to do, they wanted to conquer, they wanted to take over. So if they came back to life in 2017, you have to ask yourself, what would they do? They're going to do what they were doing for hundreds of years, which was conquering and taking pretty much whatever they could. And so Romans in helicopters was the original concept behind the resurrection curse. And the story that I wanted to release this weekend was the story of Anne Bonny the pirate. And I mean, I can go into the lore. I absolutely love talking about pirates, and one of my favorite pirates was Anne Bonny, who is closely associated with Mary Read, who was another female pirate, and this was during the golden age of piracy. So this would have been 17. I want to say it started in the early 1700s. Anne Bonny was believed to have been in Jamaica or the Caribbean by around 1718, um, because she was really only active for a very short period of time before she was captured. Lisa! Hey, girl, hey! I am just getting into the story of Anne Bonny. And if you're just joining, Anne Bonny was one of very few documented historical female pirates. Um, and also, by the way, Lisa, I'm going to make you a mod because I love you and I trust you. There we go. You've got the power. Dun, 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 dun. You know what? I don't think I've had enough caffeine. It may not seem like it, but I have not had enough caffeine, and I've got my America Monster to celebrate today. This is me toasting you, Lisa. Cheers and happy 4th. May the 4th be with you. Oh, that's going to be fun to post later. I love being creepy. So, anyway, back to our story. Anne Bonny the pirate. During this golden age of piracy, and that's what I'll refer to this time period as, because that's typically what it's referred to. And that time period was early 1700s and was effectively over by around 1725. So this is the era we're talking about. So during this time period, Anne Bonny is rustling about in Nassau and Jamaica and all over the Caribbean. And she comes upon Calico Jack Rackham and inevitably joins his crew. And this is also where she meets Mary Read. Now, the fun thing about female pirates is that it's actually kind of a funny story how Anne and Mary meet. So when Anne first met Rackham, and joined the crew effectively, she was disguised as a man. And Mary was also disguised as a man. And of course, they knew they were women, but they thought that they were other men. And so Mary caught herself, or one of them caught feelings for the other one and confessed. And they were like, wait a minute, hold up. And of course, there's speculation as to what might have ensued. I am of the belief that pirates were more modern than what we give them credit for, because I've recently been reading articles talking about sexuality in the golden age of piracy during that time period, and how they were generally more accepting and a little more progressive for the time period. And if any of the historians that I love and follow want to chime in on that too, absolutely go for it. But now hold on, where was I? Golden age of piracy. Oh, generally more progressive. Yeah, they were cabin mates, Your Honor. And they were roommates. Yeah, they absolutely were. So, in the story that I wrote, the fictional story of Anne Bonny the pirate, her and Mary definitely would have had one or more one night stands, because in my idea in the story for Anne that I wrote was that she was pansexual and just didn't really care. She was more about personality. And she was a very strong one herself. There's not lots of like historical documents specifically about her. And the main record of pirates during that time period was written by a man who wasn't even in the Caribbean. I looked this up a while back, and this British dude wanted to write about the pirates, and he just wrote what he heard and didn't really have, I think, a way to validate it. I want to say that's my best guess anyway. So his story of Anne Bonny is not typically accepted, I think, by the like archaeologist community. But what is typically accepted about her and her personality is that she was a bit of, um, what's that word? A spitfire. She was a bit of a spitfire. She was definitely a woman who would speak her mind, and would do whatever she wants. She was married at the time when she met Jack Rackham, and her husband was not a huge fan of her being bunkmates with Captain Jack Rackham. Uh, and off the top of my head, I can't remember how that ended. Um, of course, Anne was going to do whatever she wanted. So of course she was going to have her way with Rackham and whoever else she wanted. In the show The Lost Pirate Kingdom, it shows her hooking up with, I want to say, Blackbeard, one of the more prominent pirates. It shows her, it portrays her as being a little more loose. Um, and I did like the portrayal of Anne in The Last Pirate Kingdom. I think that's what it was. Gosh, now I'm doubting myself. Anyway, it's on Netflix. If you want to look it up, and I can't say for sure how historically right like all of the stories in that series were, but like in terms of character, like personality, I did like the way that they portrayed Anne, because I felt like you would have to be a strong woman to be like a strong-willed woman to be involved in a group of pirates at that time, because women were significantly less valued back then than they are now. For example, in The Resurrection Curse and The Pirate, she has a lover called Oife. Uh, and just for clarification, it's Aoife. It's an old Irish name and it's pronounced Oife. And if I remember correctly, I think it's Old Gaelic for wife, or it means wife. And I wanted her specifically to be named that because I thought, how cute would it be for Anne to have herself a little wife, back during the golden age of piracy. Um, and so Oife was from Ireland, and her father sold her for a handful of goats to a man who repeatedly abused her to the point where him took all his gold and fled to the Caribbean, where she eventually met Anne. Why am I picturing this historian like, oh, I want to research the hot list? Yeah. So, in terms of other documented female pirates, Anne and Mary are really only the two that are well documented, because of their arrest with Calico Jack Rackham later. But it is really interesting to wonder if there were more than just those two, because at the time, a woman, if she were participating in piracy, would have had to have concealed her gender for the most part. Um, and I want to believe that Anne and Mary would have eventually had their own ship, um, which is what they were discussing in the short story that I wrote. Hey, Piero. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. Fan. Hello. Hi. How are you? Welcome. We are discussing Anne Bonny the Pirate, um, who was a female pirate during the golden age of piracy in the Caribbean during the early 1700s. And so to kind of circle back to when Anne met Mary, when Anne joined Rackham's crew, this would have been sometime in March 1720, and her time with the crew was actually very short. Um, from March until November of that same year was the amount of time that she was believed to have spent on Rackham's crew, actively participating in piracy. And we know this because at some point during the late summer that year, there was an advertisement for wanting people who were wanted for piracy specifically. And Rackham was listed. Actually, I should refer to him as Calico because I think that's probably what they would have referred to him as. Calico was listed on there, Anne was listed on there, so was Mary, and a few other more famous pirates. I can't remember specifically off the top of my head, but that was a document connecting her directly to the act of piracy. And the warrant was put out for her arrest then. In November 1720, I don't remember the exact date, but what had happened was, it's kind of funny. I'll tell you the historical version and then my version. The historical account was that their crew was heavily intoxicated during a heavy, heavy, heavy night of drinking. And at some point, either during the night or the next day, when the crew was too inebriated to fight back, they were overtaken by a pirate hunting ship. And while some of them were sober enough to fight, like Anne and Mary, for example, the reports that I read somewhere stated that Anne and Mary were rousing the crew and attempting to fight back this pirate hunting ship. And in the rousing of the crew, Mary is reported to have fired live shots into the hull at the crew to get their asses up. I don't know if I can say asses. I don't know. I don't care. To get them up to fight back. And they were not successful. And it is believed that she killed accidentally some of their own crew, which was probably a mercy, because what happened to the rest of them is they were taken back to Jamaica and executed. So after Anne and the crew was arrested and taken to Spanish Town, Jamaica, which is not far from modern day Kingston. Kingston or Kingston Town? Kingston. We'll go with Kingston. Anyway, she was taken to Spanish Town prison, and with Rackham and any of the rest of the crew. And I love her for this. Her famous reported last words, recorded by people who heard her, so like it's verified. As she was watching Rackham being taken to the gallows for his hanging, she is reported to have said, "If you had fought like a man, you need not have died like a dog." Or something like that, which was total jab at him. So she is reported to have been pregnant at the time that they were arrested. So Anne and Mary both claimed the belly, which during this time period would have been them begging for the child's life, essentially. And of course, they were not going to execute someone and their innocent child. So Anne and Mary were both sent to prison, where they essentially disappeared. So the last records of Anne and Mary's fate are that they both are believed to have died in the prison, but the only record of Anne that exists after her arrest and her comments on Calico was a document sometime in 1733, I want to say, which was, she was arrested in 1720, so that would have been 13 years later. Yeah, disappeared. So in 1733, there was a name and the death date with the name attached, Anne Bonny. And to me, that's interesting because, oh, it's raining. I'm sitting outside, y'all. There's turtles down there. Maybe at the end of the live, I can flip the camera and show you guys some of the turtles, because they love to hang out by the shore. But anyway, so there was this record of Anne Bonny having died sometime in 1733. But whether or not this was really Anne is anyone's guess. And that's where her story ends. But in the Resurrection Curse, because I promised the historical version, and now I will have you guys hear my fantasy version. So the Resurrection Curse and the Pirate is an urban fantasy historical fiction based on the real life character human Anne Bonny. And for anyone watching who's curious, it is fiction. Anne Bonny is not really alive. Okay, she didn't really be subjected to a blood curse. So yes, this is a historical fiction account of a real life historical figure, but this is my interpretation. So when Anne and Mary are captured, they are debating whether or not they should take on their own ship and forge their own crew. And in my story, I think Anne and Mary would have accomplished that if they hadn't been captured. So, what happens to Anne after she gets taken to prison? We know historically she disappears. In The Resurrection Curse and the Pirate rides up on a silverback gorilla. Oh, Reed, I don't think I made you a mod here. There we go. Okay, beautiful. I forgot because I'm used to going live on the Gathering channel, so it's weird to be here. Like I'm in. I feel like I'm in a different room, but also I'm in the same room. How does that work? Okay. Anyway, so we know historically, sometime after November 1720, Anne Bonny effectively disappears. And in The Resurrection Curse and the Pirate, she is in prison and is pregnant. And the story begins with her actively having a stillbirth. She's convinced that the baby is dead because while it's not known if she ever had children, uh, I think it would have been likely that she might have had like a stillborn. Like the chances of a woman not getting pregnant back then were very small. So I want to say it's canon that she probably suffered a miscarriage at some point. So in the Resurrection Curse, she knows that the baby is dead because she's bleeding a lot, and she just I think when you know, you know. Um, and so she just kind of passes out, and she knows the guards are not going to help her because they basically forgot about her and Mary, and I want to say that at that time, if they had been convicted of piracy, their lives probably would not have been very valuable, unfortunately. Um, Anne did have a father living in Charleston, and it's unknown whatever happened to him. But I want to say that in my story, and perhaps in real life, speculation, that he would have written to the jail to find out what happened to his daughter. And I say that because historically, she was thought to have been a bastard of her father and someone that worked for him. He was attorney back in Ireland. And he took the trouble to take Anne with him to Charleston with, I can't remember who. There was another woman, and I don't remember if it was Anne's mother or stepmother, but the three of them went to Charleston together. So that tells me that he was not totally an absent father, but that perhaps he would have cared enough to write and want to know what happened to her. So I kind of want to speculate that that 1733 record was fudged by some men who wanted to make sure she disappeared. Um, and the story of Wifa actually explains how that happened. So I will get to that here at the end. But when Anne passes out, she has no recollection of what happens next. Ice Cold Monster looks heavenly. It's actually lukewarm because it's rather humid out here. It's beautiful outside, and I'm like comfortable, but it's quite warm, and it's ooh, excuse me. It's doing that like humid rain, you know. It's quite nice, quite nice. Um, so Anne passes out and has no recollection as uh she's unconscious. She is I would imagine she was in so much pain from like the bleeding and the passing of the dead child, and also so weak from malnutrition that she just literally would have been like too weak to do anything at all. And the guards, basically took her to a body pit and just chucked her in and left her. Um, and the funny thing is that, like, I'm not going to get too political, but back then, like, if you can imagine how poorly women health is viewed from the patriarchal perspective, you can only imagine what it would have been like in the early 1700s. So the male guards seeing a woman bleed out and thinking, "Oh, she did," is laughable. Um, or at least not calling a doctor to be like, "You good, fam?" You know, like poke her in the head or something. No, they just take her out back and chuck her like literal trash. And I wrote it like that specifically because I wanted it to also be a commentary of how little things have changed. You know what I mean? Um, so when she gets tossed in the body pit like garbage, it's meant to hurt. It's meant to be like, oh, that's rough. Um, so anyway, she ends up waking up in this body pit, having passed the dead child, and somehow, with all her remaining energy, manages to make it back to the tavern that she would frequent, that was run by her friend Wifa, or her lover, and they were roommates. um, so she makes it back to the tavern, and Wifa helps her escape to Charleston. And in The Resurrection Curse and the Pirate, because remember, this is historical fiction. This is just what I've written. It's not real. Anne Bonny makes it to Charleston, and from there she meets a guy and ends up having a family with him. And as she's laying on her deathbed, you know, she hasn't told this guy anything. She made up a whole new persona when she moved to Charleston. She actually she was dressed as a boy for a while. Connor, that was the name. I was trying to think of the name. She went by Connor for a while, who was Wifa's husband. She the way that she escaped was pretending to be Wifa's husband, which is kind of cute. And I glazed over the whole sapphic thing between the two of them because it is spicy. I will tell you that. And if you are just tuning in or just watching here back on the whatever, the Resurrection Curse and the Pirate is available for free on my website right now. So you can head over to the link in my bio, check my link tree, and it is the top link in my link tree. And you can read it for free. I actually have a copy of it right here. This was a misprint. I was supposed to have a different cover, but the guy that I paid to do the logo here kind of fell through. So we're gonna have to reprint these at some point. But these were ones that I had available at Gathering Legacy and Gathering 6. And and the Pirate is included in this, but it is now published in a digital format for free because we're celebrating. We'll go with that. We're celebrating. The Resurrection Curse as a whole, as a series, is meant to be kind of a jab or a bit of a take on the current state of things. And the idea is that when Anne dies, she comes back to life. And as you know, she had made up this other life. She had never told her husband about her time as a pirate. On her deathbed, she confesses everything to him, and then she dies. She's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm a legend." Dies. um, just dips. Drops a bomb and dips. That is Anne the Pirate. In sum, drops a bomb on her husband and dips. I love it. I love it. So yeah, she tells him her life as a pirate and dies. And then she wakes up on the beach. And at first she's like, is this heaven? You know, because she wanted to be burned and buried at sea. Because she knew that a graveyard would never take her. Fun historical fact, old colonial towns in the US often during the 18th century had religiously segregated cemeteries. Love it. So she knew that she would never be buried in a religious cemetery for what she was. Not that anybody would have known, and she could have easily been buried on their property, but because of who she was and how free she felt on the sea during her time as a pirate, like that's what she wanted. She wanted to be back in the back in the ocean. What's that part of your world? Under the sea. Yeah, she did eventually become under the sea. Anyway, sorry y'all, I make myself laugh. So yeah, she wakes up on the beach and she realizes that it's not heaven because the seagulls are a little too real and the other people walking on the beach also a little too real. And then she looks down and notices that she ain't got boobs no more. She's totally flat chested, and she's like, excuse me, what? And she looks at her hands and realizes that they're not old lady hands. They're also not young lady hands either. They are male hands. And then she looks in her pants. And that's when she realizes, oh my God, I'm no longer a woman. To my horror, I am a man. To my everlasting horror, I was suddenly a man. I'm so sorry. I promise I'm not a man hater. It's just very funny to me that she had all of this, like, you know, female fire, and then she has to wake up as a man. And this was after she almost dies because of one, because she almost died during that miscarriage, but luckily she didn't, for us anyway. So she realizes she's a man, and she's like, what the heck happened? So what had happened was back during her time as a pirate. Remember, she was only active from March 1720 to November 1720. But that's March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. That's like 9 months at sea as a pirate. That's plenty of time to get into some funny business. And funny business she does find herself in, because they find themselves overtaking a ship, and they find when they start boarding the ship that these two men are at the center of the ship executing their own crew. And they look at these two dudes fighting and want absolutely nothing to do with them, are like absolutely shooketh at the power that these two are exhibiting. One of them is a man from the Far East and very good with a sword. So they're just taking the crew out left and right. And the other guy, who is tall, kind of Greek god looking, uh, says they refuse to fight. So he said to literal hell with them. And then he asks Calico for passage to Nassau, which Calico agrees to. And while these two are on the ship, they have a party, and Anne doesn't remember a whole lot because she was heavily drinking. She remembers being attracted to this Greek god-looking figure, and she remembers the drinking, and she remembers seeing electric sparks as if there were lightning coming from his hands. And that's all she remembers from that night, because they got to Nassau overnight and they were gone the next morning. So she wasn't able to ask him like, hey, what was that all about? And he just dips, which they tend to do in the Resurrection Curse series. They too tend to dip quite a bit. So he dips, and Anne is just like, whatever, that was just a fun party, whatever. And she suspects that they have something to do with it. So in the modern day, she realizes that she's a man. She knows that she has a family. She somehow knows things that she shouldn't really know. Like that she has a mother and that their house is close by. She looks down, she sees a surfboard. She understands what a surfboard is, even though did they have surfboards in the 18th century? Another question for another day. Did they surf? I feel like that has the same energy as do you like jazz? Do you like jazz? Did you like 18th century surf? Happy America Day. That wasn't there before. Yeah, I knew you would like that. Is my mic on or off? Oh, it's off. I think I accidentally turned it. Can you hear me now? Phone call, phone call. Can you hear me now? I miss bacon. I can't hear you now. Oh, okay. Woo, we got it fixed. Yay. Oh, also, look, new ink. I don't know how well I can show it. Ugh. I try. Anyway. All right. Let's see, where was I? Okay. There we were. If you're just now joining, or if you're just now tuning in, I'm a small indie author who has just published her first short story of her series, The Resurrection Curse. And you can read Anne the Pirate on my website. The link tree is in my bio, and it's the first one up at the top if you want to go and read it and check it out. It's based on Anne Bonny, the fictional pirate. No, real pirate. I wrote the fiction. Anyway, so Anne knows that she has a family. She knows that their house is nearby. So she picks up her surfboard and heads to the house. When she gets to the house, she comes across Beth, who is, hold on, let me back up. She gets to the house and she sees Beth. Beth turns around and freaks, like absolutely loses her mind. She screams, "Seb!" And Seb is her son. Seb is Sebastian. Sebastian is the person whose body she has just possessed. So Sebastian's consciousness is no longer at the surface. Anne is fully controlling his body. She has access to his memories, like his awareness of modern day things. Like, for example, she knew what a surfboard was. And he doesn't, like, Sebastian no longer has control over anything. So he can't even control what she can or cannot have access to in terms of memory. So when she goes in the house and sees Beth, like, she knows that's Sebastian's mom. Like, she knows that's her mom. And so she freaks out and screams, "Oh my God, what happened?" And she immediately grabs Anne by the hand and slams her down and holds a knife to her own son's arm and says, "You better start talking." Beth can see Anne. So when we talk about the resurrection curse, what I'm talking about is a ancestor possessing their modern day descendant's body. And I've got the cover of my book to show y'all an example. So this is Uno, the person, and he is a late 20s Italian boy from somewhere in New York, New Jersey. And he finds himself possessed by his ancient Roman ancestor. And that's why you can see the helmet, you can see the gladius, you can see the bit of armor here. So when Beth looks at her son, this is what she sees. She sees a ghostly pirate over top of her son, like a shadow, kind of. Like, she can see the colors, she can see like Anne's face, she can see her son's face underneath, kind of like how you can still see his shirt underneath. So that's what I mean when she looks at Anne / Sebastian, she sees them both. And the reason she can see them is going to be explored more in my second book. But what I can share is that she is a time-traveling half alien. So Beth sits Anne and her husband down and explains everything to her. And what had happened to Beth was she was given powers of the Jotun. And the Jotun are a race of ancient aliens who were sent to Earth millions of years ago to populate it and essentially find out if it were able to be dominated. And while they don't exactly know how, they were essentially hatched from their capsule, and they look like modern humans, but they have immortality. They are long-living. They are incredibly strong, and they found out, they didn't really know, but they found out that they can't really be killed. And they have all of these incredible magical powers. Like, if you think in terms of D&D, that's the type of magic that they possess. So they're able to cast these healing spells, these destructive spells. Even one was able to create a time-traveling spell. And the one that created the time-traveling spell is the one that granted power to Beth. So while she is physically human, she has a portion of her self that is inherently alien and full of magical power, uh, enough to transport herself through time. And it's kind of a hard pill for Anne to swallow. She's just kind of sat there like, excuse me, what? So Beth realizes that Anne is like her ancestor. And that's how she's able to put two and two together of how Sebastian became possessed by Anne. And Anne tells her the whole story. She has no reason to mistrust Beth, because she knows that Beth is not going to hurt her own son. And this kind of puts Anne in a weird position too, because if you think about it, she was a mother, and she is now possessing like her 11th great grandson, and she feels some type of way about that. She is incredibly pissed after she realizes that she was tricked into taking this resurrection curse, because if she had known it would affect her own children's children, she would have never done anything to put them in that sort of position. So like, she's just pure rage, and she's willing to do anything to stop it. And Beth believes her. So she essentially takes Anne and sends her to Savannah, Georgia to join the resistance. And it is a secret resistance. If you think about in terms of Star Wars, and like, I know I'm not a Star Wars girly, I'm sorry. I really love Mando though, don't get me wrong. But if you think in terms of Star Wars, like the Resistance, there is a secret resistance brewing, and it is starting in the rural South, with another alien named Jesse. And you can read about Jesse's story in the Resurrection Curse Dovetail. She basically goes and kidnaps this girl, Nell, and takes her on a Bilbo type journey. And yeah. So Anne is resurrected in 2017 in the body of her 11th great grandson, and is then sent to join the resistance. And I promised I would talk about Weefa. So another short story I'm writing is a sequel to this one. So in this story, you have Anne and Weefa, and Weefa goes on her own journey after Anne leaves Jamaica. And I think this will be a good place to end the live with this story. So again, if you're just joining in, or if you're just finding this live, hi, Scotty Oakenlake here, and I am a self-published indie author, and I just published my first short story online. I printed it a while back, but this is just one of the stories that I put in it that I wanted to send you guys for free, because I really love the story and I love this series. And if you like historical fiction and urban fantasy, come check it out. So in the story of Anne the Pirate, she has a female lover who is a tavern girl named Weefa. And Weefa helps Anne escape Jamaica, and they never see each other again. It's very sad. Anne often wonders what happens to her, and in fact, Weefa is one of the first people she looks up to see if she can find anything about her once she realizes what a cell phone is. So she's not able to find Weefa, but in Jamaica, after Anne leaves, Weefa's depressed. Needless to say, she has always been for the ladies. One of the first things she tells Anne early on in their friendship is that she's only interested in women. She was never interested in men at all. So Anne was effectively the love of her life. And she did live a very short life, unfortunately. But after Anne leaves Jamaica, she kind of wallows for a little while in her sadness. And while she's doing this wallowing in sadness, she remembers something. She remembers Anne talking about the mysterious strangers that boarded their ship and effectively gave her the resurrection curse. Now, Oifa doesn't know about the resurrection curse. The only thing she knows is that Anne was involved with some mysterious strangers that are recruiting and promising the greatest gift. And because of who Oifa is, she's also a bit of a spitfire like Anne. She's your typical sweet little Irish girl. No, she's not your sweet typical little Irish girl. She is your typical Irish girl in the sense that she's a bit of a hothead, and she says and does what she pleases. She won't take no crap. The first time she meets Anne, she threatens to cut her balls off. That's the type of woman Oifa was. And so she decides that she's going to go on an adventure herself, kind of inspired by Anne. And because she knows she's never going to see Anne again, this is like the last trace that she has of Anne. So Oifa leaves Jamaica and heads to Nassau, where she goes to hunt for the mysterious strangers. And she finds them very quickly, actually. They give her the whole spiel of promising her life after death, the greatest gift, resurrection. And she takes it. Has no idea what it is, but she takes it. It scares the crap out of her, and as soon as she can, she dips. Heads back to Jamaica and thinks nothing of it. He did, while she was there, happen to give her a spiked treat. And this spiked treat caused her to have a one-night stand with a dude. So she was kind of surprised 9 months later when she has her child. And she never expected to be a mom. It was never in the cards for her because, as I said, she was always for the ladies. So she never dreamed of being a mom, but she wasn't mad about it either. She wasn't the best mom. She was the type of mom who was training her daughter to do her job, like as tavern owner, from pretty much the time that she could pour glass. So her daughter was raised right alongside her, and unfortunately, when her daughter is still pretty young, she passes away. And she does this curious thing where she makes one final sacrifice for her dear Anne. And remember when I said earlier that in 1733 there was a record of a death connected with the name Anne Bonny in 1733, remember? 1733, December, is when Oifa dies. And as she lay dying, she tells her tavern owner friends that she is requesting two things from them. First is that she wants them to take on her daughter. She wants them to essentially hire her daughter in her place and let her keep running the tavern. And the second thing she asks is that when she dies, that her name is not recorded. She asks that her name be recorded as Anne Bonny. And they are horrified at her request. They're like, are you serious? Like, they don't want to do it. because Anne Bonny was convicted of piracy, and for Oifa to have that association was like unheard of. And initially they didn't want to do it, but she literally begged them on her deathbed, please do this for me. And finally they relent. And in December 1733, Oifa dies, and her death is recorded as Anne Bonny. And then Oifa wakes up. And that's where that teaser ends. Oifa the Barmaid is a work in progress and is meant to be a part of this side series that I'm writing alongside my main book. This is the Resurrection Curse Dovetail. It is not available online yet, but I have about 100 copies that I am getting ready to post as available online, which is kind of crazy. The Resurrection Curse Dovetail I started in 2021, and in 2025 I finished the last lines of the book, and here we are about a year later. And to celebrate, I thought, what better way to celebrate America's 250th than by telling a story about a dead pirate who comes back to life. So if oh gosh, I lost my train of thought, hold on. Oh gosh. Oh, I was talking about the short series. So Anne the Pirate and Oifa the Barmaid are a side companion series to the main book. They will both appear in the second book to this series. I've already started the second book, and I'm so excited. The second book is yet to be titled, but the Resurrection Curse 2 Electric Boogaloo will contain Anne the Pirate, Oifa the Barmaid, and Beth the Time-Traveling Alien. And another one that I'm getting ready to release online is Gerhilda the Valkyrie. Gerhilda the Valkyrie is a Viking warrior who, in the 9th century AD, accidentally partakes in the Resurrection Curse and also finds herself resurrected in the body of her descendant as well. And that one is, the release date for that one is TBD. I don't have a release set for that, but now that I have my website up and going, thank you Google Sites. I'm not the biggest fan of Google right now for all their AI stuff, but I do appreciate how easy it is to use their Google modules. So now that I have my own website, I can pretty much post whatever and whenever, which is another reason I wanted to self-publish. So Gerhilda the Valkyrie should be available soon. In fact, maybe my birthday. That can be a cool birthday present to myself. So anyway, thank y'all for joining. If you're just joining now, or if you are if you've tuned in at any point, hi, I'm Scotty Oakenlake. I am the author and maker behind Oakenlake Creations, and I have just published the first short story of my series, The Resurrection Curse, on my website. You can check the link tree in my bio. It is the first link up at the top, and from there you can navigate to Anne the Pirate and read about how a pirate from 1720 comes back to life in 2017 and lives to sail the seas again. And I will leave one final teaser. In book 2, she's gonna meet some other familiar faces. So if you guys were paying attention earlier when we were talking about who she was associated with, think about it. I do love me a good sea battle. This story was inspired in part by Assassin's Creed Black Flag, because I'm a nerd and I just really love the game. and it's pretty well written as well. I really enjoyed it. So also to kind of celebrate Black Flag, we got Pirate Smut. Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end the live here, and I wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching. This has been a bit of a passion project. The Resurrection Curse series started when I lost my brother, and it kind of grew from there. So I think it's kind of starting to come full circle when I think about it, because this series was kind of inspired by him. One of our last conversations was about me pursuing my own business, and he was nothing but supportive. And so this is dedicated to him. This is dedicated to my family, and yeah. So I hope you guys love it as much as I do, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Okay, love y'all. Bye.